Welcome everyone to the BAME Women Leadership Pipeline webinar. We're really excited to have you join us. We really hope that the next hour or so is going to be really informative, inspiring, bring some challenges and thoughts that you can take on to your workplaces, to your homes, to your friends and family to kind of continue the conversations. Firstly, some housekeeping. So obviously there will be no fire during this event. So if you do hear a fire alarm, it's probably in your house and you probably should do something about it. So next, we will be recording this event so we can be able to share it to others after it's finished. If you don't want to be recorded or kind of captured, then please let us know. You can directly message the host within the webinar. There's a raise a hand function that you can use to ask any questions. We'll be taking questions at the end, so please try and save them for then, or jot them down whilst people are talking if you don't want to forget it. We'll be using the hashtag #RaiseToLead. So if you are on Twitter, then please do share your thoughts through that, and we'll be then re-sharing any conversations that happens. And we have a we have 3 amazing female speakers here today with us, which is absolutely exciting, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but do kind of just get as much as you can from this conversation, and I really hope that you enjoy it. So firstly, if each of the panelists could introduce themselves, and we'll start with Avila, and then continue. So just a few seconds to introduce yourself, your leadership journey.
Hi, my name is Avila. Thank you so much for having me today. So I founded and I currently direct a greeting cards business for underrepresented communities such as BAME, LGBT, and different disabilities, just people who wouldn't be able to find greeting cards for themselves. And I was going to say I'm a law student, but today I graduated, so I am a graduate. Thank you. But yeah, so I'm really excited to be here, and I hope I'll be able to share some of like the journey I've taken since launching my business, because it's really difficult running a business as a Black woman, so hopefully I'll be able to give some insight into that.
I'm happy to go next. Hi everybody, I'm Kanisha. I'm currently a Year 6 primary school teacher in East London, and also a middle leader in charge of a subject in my school as well. My journey to leadership's been sort of a long but quick one as well. Like Avila, I also graduated with a law degree, so I had no intention of going into teaching, but here I am years later, and I've kind of worked my way up, you know, through a bit of hard work and dedication and a sprinkle of luck. But yeah, like Avila says, you know, it's tough in any environment you're in, being a Black woman, and it's often hard to identify with people in that environment, which is something I'm going to talk about this evening, and I'm sure the other girls have got things to say on that as well. But yeah, thank you for having me, and hope you can take something away from it.
Good evening, I'm Shadia. I am a lecturer at De Montfort University. I run a module called Race and Media, which ran for the first time this academic year, which was amazing. My journey into leadership is quite interesting, because up until a couple of weeks ago, I didn't class myself as a leader until I was invited. So thank you very much to speak on this panel. However, you know, after reviewing my position, my journey, and so on, you know, I hope to share with the panel and everybody listening today my journey and how I found myself in such a leadership position. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So as you can tell, the panelists are from broad different experience, but I think there's a real richness in everyone's experience and journey. So I hope that everyone attending the webinar can take something out of the conversations in the next hour. So as part of the project, we did a bit of research to kind of find out the current picture in terms of BAME women, the leadership journeys and kind of challenges. And from there, we've been able to kind of pull together some really kind of exciting conversations that started on our Twitter feed, and that will be continuing on this evening. And so our first topical conversation is looking at kind of challenges faced by BAME women. And so I'd really love to hear from the panel kind of what barriers and challenges, and also there's sometimes some speckles of opportunities that you have faced as a BAME woman within your sector. So we can do the kind of order that we did for the introductions, just for ease. So, or do chip in as well if you have anything that you want to add. So yeah, over to you.
I'll go first since I started first anyway. So I'd say for me, one of the biggest challenge which I had, which thinking about it, if I hadn't had it, then I wouldn't have started my business. But during my law degree, I was really struggling with it. So I ended up severely depressed and with bad anxiety too. And it wasn't until all of that had happened that I realized that, you know what they say, you can't come and kill yourself. So I was like, let me just do something that I know I'm actually going to enjoy while trying to get through this. Hence why I started my business. But a challenge really is to do with mental health and how unserious people take it, especially when it comes to Black women, because of the stereotypes which surround us about, the whole strong Black woman. And for me, for the first year during university, I fought so hard with doctors and just trying to tell them, no, this is something which I'm genuinely going through and I need help. But for them, they were like, you're fine and you're probably just experiencing first year blues or whatever. But it was a lot deeper for me. And it wasn't until I had a Black female doctor one time randomly that she finally stopped and actually listened to me and to help me get the help which I needed. So that's one of the things where a lot of the time people just don't understand what your experiences are, and they have their own unconscious bias, which then ends up affecting the decisions they make with regards to actually helping you. So you have to be very careful about who you turn to get help.
Thank you for sharing your experience. It's really interesting because I think when, especially when you're thinking about climbing in terms of the leadership journey, mental health and well-being phases kind of sits really closely into that. Yeah. And the ability to look after your well-being whilst in a leadership role is probably what will save you and keep you in that role. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Okay, I'm going to go next. So some of the challenges faced by BAME women or women of ethnic minorities or Black women, just in general, I'm thinking of some of the challenges I faced and sort of just going right back to the beginning of my teaching career and the idea of going for an interview and having it be like a panel interview as an alliance of schools, and looking at the panel of people hiring. I didn't see anybody that represented me or looked like me or came from where I came from. So instantly, naturally you get disheartened and you think, oh, I'm not going to get this job because I can't relate to these people, they can't relate to me, they're not understanding where I'm coming from. So instantly that barrier is there, sort of created. But then when you're in those situations, you sort of have to go back to childhood. And I know many of us here have probably heard things like, you're going to have to work twice as hard as everybody else, or you're going to have to prove who you are and why you deserve a seat at the table more than anyone else. That mentality has to kick in sort of almost immediately in order for you to be able to push through those barriers and prove to the people on the panel that are interviewing you why you deserve that job more than anybody else. But it's always just about having that that attitude towards, I'm going to have to work harder for this, and if I really want it, it's going to be worth it in the end, and nothing worth having comes easy. So that's sort of that mentality there. But then there's also other things as well. When you actually do get employed and you actually do get the job, looking at your counterparts or your peers or your colleagues, and you're sort of thinking, there aren't many of me. And you know, we stick out like sore thumbs already as it is. And sometimes you find yourself in situations where you have to agree with things, even if you don't necessarily agree, just to avoid being labelled that mad black woman, or, you know, the one that's come to cause trouble or being aggressive. So it's kind of like there's a challenge every day and in every aspect of work, and not just in education, in all fields, being black and a woman, but it's about how we manage that and we deal with that. And I think things like this, where the conversation is being brought to the forefront and people are invited to listen and sort of take things away, I think they're really good, because it means that people can go away, go back to their usual setting and evaluate how they behave, how they speak, and also how others are treated, and look at things and think, well, actually, that's not fair, and not be afraid to voice their opinions on that and help make change.
Yeah, and just, you know, feeding off what you've just said about kind of looking around the room and going, there's nobody that looks like me, that feeling of kind of being the only one, or having some type of imposter, you know, syndrome, it's real, and it plays on your self-confidence, your academic abilities. You know, you start thinking, am I supposed to be here? Is this space for me? Have I just been put here, you know, on mistake? Are people going to be constantly checking, you know, do I know what I'm doing? So that imposter syndrome plays throughout your whole journey, and keeps creating glass ceilings. And those glass ceilings, you know, they're constantly there. You're constantly fighting them, because once you fight the race one and the gender one, you're still fighting those microaggressions, where for me specifically, you know, having a higher, you know, having a higher rate of students come to me because they've realized, oh, you're the black lecturer and you're the only one, and I've never had one before, so they all flock to your office hours, or they all want to email you some advice, or so on and so forth. And it's still, you know, it keeps playing on you. It's almost like, can you last? Can you survive the stress and the pressure? And that again is a fight, and then you have to break that glass ceiling to say, yes, I can fight through this. And you know, the narrative that you were saying about that, the, you know, the difficult black woman, that also is a you know, a niggle at the back of your brain, where you're thinking, I don't want to be labeled that, I don't want to be stereotyped that, however, I am feeling really uncomfortable, but how do I address this? And then the constant negotiation of how you address something that's real, just so that others don't feel that you're intimidating them. And you know, all of that on a day-to-day basis whilst trying to do your job, you know, it plays on your health, your mental health, and your psyche. For me, one of the challenges that I found was my research topic and my research interest. So my research topic whilst doing my doctorate is, and my thesis is on black masculinity. So, you know, being in a department or a university which is predominantly white, or even the department is predominantly white, well, it was, you know, to find someone that's interested in your topic, interested enough to write on your topic with you, interested enough to, you know, funnel fundings on your topic with you, because this is where it comes from. If someone's interested in your topic, they'll fund it. If someone's interested in your topic, they're right on it. But when you have to keep on trying to prove that your topic is worthy, that again is a real hard challenge to be able to do. But then once people realize, oh, she does know what she's talking about, she's actually quite an expert in her topic, then you have to be careful not to become that tokenist member of staff, to keep having the only black person in the room so that they can talk. And because that again is a challenge, it's exhausting, it plays on you, and it's something that you just on a day-to-day basis constantly are fighting.
Yeah, those are all very good points. And within that, we touched upon about intersectionality, and how as black women, the kind of intersecting barriers. So just for context, intersectionality is the kind of the crossroads between, for example, your race and your gender, your race, your gender, and sexuality or disability, and how within that crossroad, the different challenges that black women can face. So I'd really like to explore that further, and discussed in terms of kind of what are the impacts that you've experienced in terms of those intersecting barriers within kind of your leadership journey. And in terms of reflecting on that, do you think there's any ways that those can be addressed? So obviously they can't be taken, your intersectionalities can't be taken away, but how can they be addressed so Black women with all their identities and everything that they are can succeed well within leadership roles?
I think for me, the thing which I'm learning along the way is that people are going to have expectations on the type of person you're supposed to be when you're in a leadership position. But just given how I was raised and how I like to do things to myself, I don't really wanted to follow like those things. So for a lot of people, they do get like weirded out isn't the word, but they feel uncomfortable when I don't present myself a certain way that they're expecting me to. So it's really hard to now try and negotiate around certain people because they feel like they can try to take advantage or to speak to me a certain way. So when I then talk back and I say, no, that's not how I'm going to be, treated, etc., they almost get insulted. And then that's where people, start calling women the B word and all that stuff, because for a lot of people, they don't like seeing women in high positions, but then at the same time, they expect you to also be doing everything. So majority of the time, you really do just need to stick to what it is that you know is going to help you. But then again, I can only speak from experience because I haven't actually had working in, the real world yet to see just how demoralizing it can be. But I have heard from my friends and family members who said that it's extremely difficult to navigate the two, but I don't know.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, intersectionality is a sort of like almost like a two-sided coin in the sense, for me and my experience and what I've seen. So I'll look at one side of the coin first. So the idea of intersectionality can cause or force people to behave in a particular manner in order to eradicate assumptions before they've begun. So, people hear things like, oh, you speak very well for a Black woman, or, oh, you went to university. People seem really shocked that Black women have gone to university and that they've managed to work their way into these positions of high power. And then I think the fact when you add things like religion, sexuality, any form of disability into that, it complicates the situation for that one individual even more, and it makes them feel almost sort of some form of inadequacy, or the fact that the fight that they're going to have to put up to be able to prove that they should be where they want to be is too much. They will just give up. And I've seen that happen through a lot of friends and colleagues that I've had in the past. We've either gone for the same positions, or we've both sort of been on a journey together, and they've either dropped out or they've given up because of the pressure that come from these different ideas of, being a woman, being Muslim, being Black, being, of a different faith. It's a lot for somebody's, and coming back to the mental health aspect, it can affect your mental health and can allow an individual to burn out or give up. Sort of overcoming that barrier, a way would be probably to put people in, and people like ourselves in leadership, that understand what it's like to come from these different intersections and understand what happens when these intersections blend. But if people like us are in management, we then know how to manage and work with people like us that are coming up below us in the pipeline. Because I think a lot of the time you get sort of white middle class males who, aren't familiar with Black culture, aren't familiar with just what it takes to be a Black woman and being strong and having to succeed and, being determined. And a lot of the time we can be dismissed. And I think we definitely have something to bring to the table, if not more than other people. I definitely think our voice needs to be heard, but the only way we're going to get heard is if some of us can get our foot in the door to allow the way through. I mean, I don't want to come back to like sort of slavery and Harriet Tubman sort of style, but that kind of thing of one person making it and allowing others, to come through sort of on that same vibe, because without us, it's not going to be possible. And I think not being scared to be vocal about things as well, because if you've got a piece of knowledge that can educate somebody that is just generally unaware as opposed to blatantly ignorant, that one conversation you can have with somebody could change their mindset for the rest of their life. And then that sort of allows them to impact others. It's like advertising, word of mouth. The more you talk and the more you say, well, actually, this is wrong. And actually, just because a person comes from here, there or there, it doesn't mean they shouldn't be given an opportunity. Look at me, I made it here. they've got to be, you know, everybody needs a chance somewhere. So I think the more we talk and the more we sort of be loud and proud about it, we don't, you know, gone are the days of having to silence ourselves because we're Black women. You know, more of us should be speaking up and joining together because we deserve the same opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Kanisha, what you just said about getting our foot in the door and being a representative and showing there are people like us that are in places like this. I think panels like this as well, showing BAME women's leadership experiences, and having, you know, conversations and you know, podcasts and so on and so forth like this is extremely helpful to kind of eradicate some of those challenges that we have as intersectional women. And one of the things that I find quite difficult with my intersections, just intersectionality in general, is that not everybody understands and even accepts this narrative, accepts, you know, that you can be fighting more than one oppression at a time, or experiencing. And it's kind of like, you know, when you have a panel like this, you're already preaching to the converted already. And those that don't tune into these discussions are the ones that actually need to be listening to these discussions, which I find quite often. Just if I talk about my own experience with my intersections, I'm more than happy to share. I am a Black female. I identify as having a disability. I have 2 young children. I say young as in primary school age. I had one of my children during my PhD, which was like a shock and a horror to the department in regards, they didn't know how to treat me as a student or staff because I was teaching at the time. And it was quite traumatic and difficult going through that, because, you know, it's almost like there's a specific way that a PhD student is typecasted as young, or, you know, doesn't have any children and is quite free and lives in student accommodation or with their friends and so on and so forth. But I was married with a child and one on the way and so on, and it's like my experience didn't understand and cater that for me. So when you put meetings at 4 o'clock, I can't do that because I've got a school run. And there was kind of no, or when you put, not even meetings, when you put a lecture that I need to attend at 4 o'clock, you know, it starts to create just further pressures and challenges. So yeah, I think that more discussions and more panels like this, I think we're in a really good time at the moment where, you know, the narrative is definitely in our favor. We need to take advantage of it. You know, there's a fire in everybody's belly that we're all eager, we're all willing, we're all extremely passionate about making sure that our voices and those intersectional voices are being heard, and that things are beginning to change, because we're tired and we've been struggling for a very long time. Not as long as some of our mothers and grandmothers and so on and so forth, but even in our, you know, what you might call short period of life, we are exhausted. So it's now time to change. And yeah, thank you so much for putting a panel like this together, and also picking up on, you know, I would probably say early career leaders, because I think our voices sometimes are missed as well from the narrative. You know, we all know those academics and scholars that their names are well known, you know, they've been in their careers 30, 40, 50 years, and their voices get heard over and over again. And actually the challenges faced by some of us that are either, you know, just about starting or a 5 years in the game, is very rarely listened to.
Definitely.
Thank you everyone for sharing it. One of the points you've mentioned kind of beautifully kind of steps into the next topic regarding the importance of when you kind of make it within leadership about helping others into the space, and the power that has. And I think I'm sure that we've all had sometime in our kind of either professional careers or even just like outside in terms of personal life, moments where someone has kind of given us a helping hand, or giving us a tap on the shoulder, or even that kind of reassuring kind of like, it's going to be okay, you're doing a really good job. And that kind of taps into kind of mentorship and pastoral care that I think, well, actually not I think, it definitely plays a huge influence in terms of an individual's leadership journey. So I'd really like to find out a bit more from you in terms of whether you have access to, within your workplaces, do you have, sorry, 2 seconds, sorry, let's start the question again. Whether you do you have access to someone at work that you feel confident to share your experiences with and kind of seek guidance? And if you do, has that been a positive experience and a positive impact on your journey? And if you don't, how do you feel having access to mentorship and pastoral care can help?
I need to think about it.
Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to go first while Olivia thinks. So I'm sort of fortunate enough in the sense that the setting I work in now, the majority, and I'd say 75% of senior leadership are from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds. We have a Black executive head teacher, we have an Asian assistant head, we have a South African assistant head, and then of us middle leaders, there are quite a few Black and ethnic minority members of staff in leadership. So granted that it's a rare situation, it does happen. So some of the people that are watching or listening may be aware of settings that are similar, but I just want to sort of talk about how that affected me in the role I'm in. So I began at the school that I'm at straight after my NQT year. So for those that aren't aware or familiar, an NQT is the first year of your teaching. So once you've qualified, you become an NQT, and that's 1 year where you've got lots of hand holding and support to teach. And then after that, you're kind of, oh, you're experienced, off you go kind of thing. So I came to this school as an just after my NQT year, so my first full year of teaching with no support. And as I had my interview, I was offered a job for a middle leadership position, and kind of imposter syndrome kicked in a little bit. I thought, oh God, what did I say in that interview that meant that I got that? Like, do I really know what I'm doing? Like, me? I was, I had my hand held last year. I had a mentor. What about this year? And, sort of I was apprehensive to take the role on, but my head teacher encouraged me and pushed me and said, you know what, I see potential in you, and you've worked hard to be here. You deserve it just as much as any of the other candidates do. We will support you, we will mentor you. And then sort of from then on, I was given a mentor with regards to subject leadership and what that sort of would look like. Training was provided and support was provided. And I think without that, I probably wouldn't still have the subject that I manage, and I probably wouldn't have done the things that I've done with that. It wasn't all rosy though, because I think sometimes, now might be a bit controversial here, sometimes having a Black head or a member of management that is of an ethnic minority, you identify quite well. Sometimes they can be seen, they sort of take on the mother figure role, and you get a bit of tough love. So sometimes when things weren't going so well for me, I found that it would be a, you should know better kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm still learning. So I feel like, although yes, I identified and I had that mentorship role in the early stages, there was a bit of like, come on, Kanisha, I expect better, a bit like a mum telling you off. But sort of since then, I found other members of SLT that I can sort of, go to. And the school that I work at have a very open office door policy. The door's always open if you need support. They'd like to support you before it gets too bad. So before things are at a stage where, you're looking at serious conversations, they will come and check on you and ask you if you need any support. But also once they've supported you and you get to that sort of level where you're confident and you're able to do your job independently, and you're striving for new heights and achieving new barriers, they do then give you that opportunity to then go and support people lower down the school. And I'm always looking to pass off tips, because in the profession that we're in, it's not about reinventing the wheel, it's about working smart, not harder. So if I've got things that can help somebody else do their job a lot easier, I'm more than happy to share that, regardless if they are a mentee of mine or whether they are somebody that's more experienced. Because at the end of the day, it took somebody to be there for me to be able to do what I do. And I feel it's my duty to just pass that on, because I love the job I do and I do it for that reason. And I would hate for somebody else to come into the profession and then leave within a few years, which is sadly a statistic that is quite high. A lot of teachers that join they don't last very long in the profession. And a lot of those that do leave are from ethnic minorities or black. So I'm just trying to keep us all in the game.
Yeah. For me, the place where I find kind of that support and mentorship and ally is a lot of informal groups, a lot of informal social media groups. I'm part of a few Facebook, BAME academic groups or WhatsApp groups where we all support one another. You know, if you have an email that you're not quite sure how to respond, you can just drop it in the group, and by the time you've made a hot drink and come back, you've got a few scholars that have answered or have put some type of supporting guidance or words in there, and that's really useful because the group is absolutely massive, and it's made up of early career researchers right up to your professors, and that's really helpful as well. Another thing that I wanted to highlight is when we talk about mentors and mentorship, interestingly, it comes, I think it comes naturally that when you look for a mentor, you look for someone like yourself. And what surprised me in my role and my leadership experience is one of the people, one of the beacons, one of my cheerleaders to help me get to where I am today was actually a white woman. And this person's still in my life now. She's absolutely amazing. And she was the one going, apply for that job. She was the one going, you are amazing. You can do this. You deserve a seat at the table. And I didn't necessarily, well, I just didn't get that from other BAME women, not necessarily because there was any kind of malice or anything like that. One, I didn't know many anyway. And two, I think sometimes you're just so busy trying to survive yourself and just treading the water yourself. Sometimes it's really difficult to kind of offer a helping hand to somebody else. But I'm similar to, you know, Kanisha, where now that I'm in a position where, you know, I'm in a really good, secure leadership position, I'm very confident in the position that I'm in, I make sure that I leave that door open. I'll give you a ladder and a rope to, you know, to pull you up, and I'll push you if I need to as well, to help, you know, women of, to be honest, all shapes and sizes, to try and just have an opportunity, a chance to even present the best of who they are and see what happens there. But sometimes, often, you know, some women do shut the door behind them. They've fought so hard to get to where they are. They forget that when they step through the door, just to leave it a little bit ajar, and they shut it. So we need to all be aware, leave it open, offer a helping hand if you can. Sometimes, you know, I spoke before about having, you know, more BAME students turn up at my office hours, for example. As a PhD student, that was a lot. That was too much. Now I'm in the position I'm in now, I will leave my door open, and I do have 5 more minutes for you. And again, it's not just BAME students, it's students in general. I do have 5 more minutes for you, because actually being a student myself and then, you know, traveling up my leadership journey, them 5 more minutes, you never know, could do a lot for the person. You never know what, you know, position they're in, what state of mind, mental health. And just for someone to say, do you know what, I like Shada, she listens. I think that makes a difference in becoming a mentor, being seen as somebody welcoming. And also when you practice like that, when you portray that type of you know, being and representation to others, it means that when you're seeking the same, you know exactly what you're after, you know exactly what you're not after either. And I think that all of that together as a package, it helps massively with your own well-being and evidently your mental health.
Yeah.
I think I finally thought about it. Thank you, Kanisha.
That's right.
So for me, majority of my mentors have come from while I was still at school. So during my degree, so with the opportunities I signed up for to do with running my business, especially accelerator hubs. So the university was very involved and very interested in what it is that I was doing. And despite their department not being diverse at all, the mentors that they provided us with were extremely supportive, that with every opportunity that came their way that they thought I would be genuinely interested in, they made sure to direct it towards me, instead of thinking, maybe we should give it to someone else because, the tech white guy fits the image that they're trying to maintain or whatever. But they were very open to ensuring that I would be given the same opportunities. And I think it's just stuff like that where people genuinely believe in what it is that you're doing, regardless of whatever barriers that might come your way. That's extremely important. So for me, when it comes to having mentors, I can't say I actually seek them out, but they find me. Like, there's always someone who's willing and ready to help guide me, and stuff like that is what I think people appreciate the most. So now I know what it is that I want from a mentor. It's just a matter of being able to find them, but you need to go through those experiences to see how people talk to you, how you respond to them. Are you willing to listen to the information they're giving you? Because sometimes, if people can't communicate with you properly, you don't fully process how they're trying to help you. So for example, with my older brother, I'd consider him a mentor, but he definitely has a tough love approach. So if anything goes wrong, he'll be the first to be quite critical. But then with someone else, it's okay, these mistakes happen all the time. So it really is, are you able to respond and resonate with the person talking? It doesn't really have to, I don't think it has to be someone with like a similar background to you, but as long as they genuinely have the same passion and belief as you, it can really help you go a longer way.
Thank you everyone for sharing that. That's really interesting. And like a lot of the time in terms of the conversation, for example, that's around kind of like, why isn't there more like Black women in leadership roles, either in like on boards in universities or going into the teaching profession, not let alone being head teacher, just getting them in and getting them to stay. And like in terms of the kind of Black women succeeding in their studies and in their career aspirations beyond university, a lot of the time, and especially now when kind of conversations around race is really a hot topic, let's phrase it as that. One of the things that's really important in that conversation is about kind of looking at changing the system which Black women are navigating in, rather than trying to fix Black women. And I think that's one of the things that is just so important in any shape and in all shape and forms. And so our next topic kind of focuses about action for change, and I really want to focus in terms of like systematic change rather than the kind of sometimes the fluffy kind of changes that can happen, or the kind of putting plasters on issues. So the real systematic changes. So I'd really love to hear in terms of what kind of processes or factors within the leadership journey do you think would benefit from change, and what needs to happen to improve. And yeah, so in terms of exploring in terms of systematic changes to improve the kind of success and the progression of BAME women in leadership positions. That question was probably packaged really weirdly, but systematic change in terms of having more women succeeding and entering leadership positions.
I'd say that I think an important thing is that people need to be a lot more comfortable speaking out when there are issues, because a lot of the time the issues which everyone tries to pretend on there or to deny, they're the reasons why it's impossible for everyone else to now enter into the system, especially if the gatekeeper themselves are the problem, because they're the one who are regulating exactly who has access to all these opportunities. So I have had an experience where I was told to ask for business advice from this one guy who had previously been involved in an accelerator program. But the first day I met him, like literally within 5 seconds of our conversation, he was like, you realize the only reason you're here is because you're Black and a female, right? You've ticked the boxes for them. So I felt extremely uncomfortable, and I was just like, it wasn't until a few months later that I was having the conversation with the accelerator. I was like, an experience happened, but I was too scared to actually say who it was because they were still asking me, oh yeah, is he helping you? Is he giving you all this? So I felt uncomfortable saying he's the reason why I don't really like coming to the accelerator anymore. So I really regret not saying who it was, but at the same time, certain things are just extremely uncomfortable and you don't really know like how to navigate them. But if you do have the courage, I would recommend you speak up as soon as possible instead of leaving it.
I think, like Avina said, it's a tough place to be at because, you know, there are plenty of situations that happen where you do feel uncomfortable to speak out at the time. And, you know, it's very easy for us to say, oh, well, government legislation should be put in place. But then you'll get situations similar to, like Avina said, you know, where companies will only recruit you because they have to, or it's a legal obligation, you know, not because they want to, or because they're recruiting you off merit or because of your experience. I think maybe having some kind of board or union type thing where that's sort of run by people like us who know the law, who know rights, who aren't afraid to speak up, who aren't afraid to campaign and aren't afraid to take companies to court if necessary. So that way Black women feel they have a safe space to go to if situations arise at work or in a recruitment process and they feel that they've been treated unfairly, because it is a tough one to sort of combat in a conversation. And I think it's going to take years of, you know, sort of work to come in the future. And the more people that get on board like ourselves and the more people that are aware actually this is your right and this is what's right and this is what's wrong, and don't be afraid to voice your opinion. I think it's a bit like the whole, you know, if one person speaks up then everybody else comes forward. I think the more that happens, the more confidence people will be given to say, actually, I was treated unjustly or I had an experience that wasn't fair. And, you know, the more people that tell their stories and share their outcomes and the fact that actually, although I had that barrier, I still made it, it gives confidence to those coming through that may have faced, you know, 10 barriers and are just on the verge of giving up. But I definitely think some form of union or group of people who, you know, are able to represent people who feel, you know, they've been served with injustice in leadership or in just in professions in general coming up. And also just us being, you know, more vocal at the time and not fearing the repercussions and sort of almost having that kind of, well, if I lose my job, I don't really care. I'm voicing my opinion, but I'm also raising awareness and I'm going to make sure that nobody behind me has the same experience as me. It's kind of tough because you are at a catch-22, you know, do you voice your opinion, lose your job, not have any money to pay your bills, or do you voice your opinion, lose your job, but then it ends a process of negativity that's happened to people before you and you are the last. So it is a tough one. I definitely think some kind of network or support group that, you know, can sort of take on companies and employers on your behalf.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing the word constantly, confidence. Confidence is a massive one. And when we look back of, you know, being BAME children, we're not given confidence. Why would we be confident when everyone and everything around you says that you're not important? When you look at the literature that you're given, the books, the examples, the teachers put in front of you. So why would you be confident? You get to a certain age and a certain position, and actually you're lacking massive confidence to be able to speak up. And thankfully now, you know, we're all in a position where we are actually the gatekeepers now. We are the gatekeepers and we have the confidence and the ability to speak up for ourselves and also others. And I think we give those looking up at us or to us the confidence just by being visible. And, you know, as you've both said, by speaking about our experiences, and potentially us taking that jump that may not end necessarily positive for us, but as you said, it will end, you know, further oppressions for somebody else. And, you know, I think one thing that we can do as BAME women in regards to leadership and being in the room is putting ourselves forward. And we're not taught to do that either. We're taught to actually step back and move out the way. And we're taught to sit down and be quiet. We're actually taught that from the home, never mind the society in general. Put yourself forward. You know, if you see, times have changed now. If you see a panel, if you see an organization, if you see a board of directors, and there is no representation, not necessarily just of Black women, BAME women or BAME in general, call them out. And for me, it's like, if they employ you or take you on board because you're their tick box, flip that around and you make sure you're not ticking any of their boxes, and that actually you're changing the shape of their whole formula. And that's what we need to do. We need to flip that narrative around to make a difference. Otherwise, we're going to end up in the same, perpetuating the same stereotypical, systematic, you know, institutionalized racism. And that's what it is. And we also need to remember that this is systematic. It's so embedded in the institutions that we work in. It's not enough just to very gently unpick it. We're going to have to rip this plaster off. It's going to hurt. And to be honest, it's going to be ugly. And a lot of institutions, organizations are very scared of what it looks like. But we've been facing it for our whole leadership journey. So unfortunately, if you feel uncomfortable, welcome to the
what we felt. Yeah,
there we go. Welcome to the club. And you know, you have to like get, you know, build some resilience and you know, learn to move on. But I do think as well that you know, there are so many of us now, and it's not to say generations before us there weren't as many, you know, BAME women. It's just that at the moment a lot of us are in these leadership positions as directors, head teachers, professors, you know, right there on the boards, and we're making noises this time round. And you know, we're in the positions where, again, as I say, we are the gatekeepers and we are the change makers. And I think over time is a big one. Over time, generationally, the next generation coming up behind me, they are fierce and they are ready to go. They're basically saying, give me my piece of paper so I can make these changes, please. And they're absolutely amazing. And I just hope that I've made a path, you know, sturdy enough for them to be able to walk on and build, you know, on top of what I've done. So I do think it's a bit of time, generation, but ultimately, you know, find that confidence to be able to put ourselves forward. And when we put ourselves forward, we change the narrative so that it benefits us.
Yeah. Sort of adding on from what Shadia said about, you know, pulling up a seat to the table and coming to the table, the more of us that come to the table at the same time, the more likely we are to be heard and the more likely we are to have a positive impact, but also to create that and pave that way for the younger generation coming through behind us, because we are technically their ancestors. We are the ones that have done it before them. We've started this sort of groundwork off, or continued it on from our own ancestors. And I think as generations go by and time goes on, it's becoming easier and easier for people to get to those positions of responsibility and leadership. And, you know, they won't have to make as many changes because a lot of the work's been done before them. But it's just about all of us, like, you know, the C word keeps coming up, confidence. Have that confidence to go to the table and make the noise and kick the doors down. I don't know how many of you have seen the Tupac video of him saying he's tired of, you know, knocking on the doors. He's about to break the door down and bust in. That's where we are at now. We're at that point where we're breaking through the door, and there's only so much holding back they can do. And eventually they're going to have to listen. It's just about persistence, really.
Yeah, and just to follow on from that, I just want to say, I think especially with my generation, I think a lot of us are tired of trying to, you know, push our chairs towards the table. We've decided to just build our own tables. And I think that's also like just a whole new avenue which a lot of these large institutions didn't think would ever reach us. So they're really like, I'll say shook, like shaking, because they now see that there's a lot of power within our community, and especially with people now rallying around to support us, that a lot of change is being made at a faster rate than anyone could have imagined.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This, like, everything that you've all said has been just really, there's been some really great gems. I was like, yes. So thank you so much. Yeah, exactly.
I did tweet
really great mic drop moment. We're coming to the kind of close of the kind of Q&A and of the panel section. We'll be moving on to the Q&A shortly. But the final answer that I'd really love to hear from the panel is, what one piece of advice would you give to your younger self? So it could be your younger self 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, whichever kind of version of your younger self. But in terms of knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Only one piece.
Well, let's try with one and then we'll see. Your biggest gem, the biggest, like the top thing that you'll be like, you know what, this will help you.
I'll go first. I would say that there is a lot of power in your voice. Like, people try to silence you because they know that there's a threat underlying, so speak up whenever you need to.
I think my one, I would probably say, don't be afraid to do new things. So long as you believe in yourself, others will listen and others will follow suit. So just believe in your craft and go for it 110%, even if it's not always perfect or it's not always good. Everyone's going to have bad days or periods of bad times, but just stick to it and believe in yourself and have that confidence.
That's amazing. That I was literally going to start off with, don't be afraid. And isn't it interesting that we've all gone down that path of something to do with fear and overcoming that? But mine was going to be similar to both of yours, which was, don't be afraid to talk, but just make sure that what you say, your narrative, is not at the detriment to yourself. So look after yourself, but still have the confidence to say what you need to say. That's it.
Thank you so much, everyone. Like, yeah, thank you so much. And I'm sure the audience would really love to kind of, I've been seeing some of the comments pop up in terms of kind of being people really liking all of you on the panel. So now is the time for us to be able to open up to questions. So you can either I think raise your hand or put in the chat put in the chat your questions, and this will be managed by the moderator, and we will take your questions. So over to you, the audience. Let us know anything that's inspired you, challenged you, questions, thoughts. We'd love to hear them.
Nobody?
Oh, sorry. Hi, it's Chloe here. Just while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I have one also. Firstly, thank you so much for sharing everything, and all the insight that you've brought to this discussion is really been incredible. Just wanting to touch on the concept of self-care, which you kind of drawn to the fact that you know, the amount of confidence it can take to go into leadership roles, and also the psychological toll it can be trying to face these challenges and barriers. So I was just wondering if you could talk a bit more about the practice of self-care within this environment, and how you've managed to keep yourself sane through these challenging times.
It's hard. We're not, you know, I'm not going to lie. It's not self-care is not the easiest thing, actually. And to get to, you know, a leadership position and in the positions that we're all aspiring to get to, unfortunately, we end up putting ourselves in a not the best situations. But for me personally, what's helped me with my self-care is to have an amazing support system, which I know not everybody can obviously find and get. And that comes in the form of family, but also friends who I trust, and, you know, they'll just check me to say, Sharjah, you're doing too much. Sharjah, you sound exhausted. Sharjah, you look a mess. And by that, I kind of know I need to pull back. I need to say no, which obviously is very difficult for me to say no, because I want to do everything and change the world, but I can't change the world when I'm lying in bed exhausted. So for me, my self-care has been helped by a support system. So if you are able to have one of those, then that's quite useful.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm fortunate enough in the sense that it's a known fact, teachers get plenty of holiday. So I try and make sure that during that holiday time, I actually do take a holiday. And I live in an educational household, and, you know, my mother works in schools as well, so we both have time off from work at the same time, and our holidays usually match up, although we're not in the same setting. And I just try and find time to switch off. I also find that having friends to talk to that don't work in education help, because then it means the conversation is not always about work. But then equally with my friends who are in education, because we have the same holidays, we do the same sort of, we sort of hang out and do things together. During COVID, it's been a little bit difficult, obviously, and that's taken a knock on everybody's mental health and, their well-being, because restrictions have been placed on what you can and can't do. But it's just about making sure you take that headspace. And like Shadia says, you can't change the world and fix things when you're in bed suffering from burnout or you're sick. So it's about making sure that, yes, your profession is your passion, I would assume, for some or most, but your mental health and well-being comes number one. Your own health comes first. And without that being tip-top, you then can't go and pursue your passion. So I think it's about making sure you take that time to slow down and detach as well.
I agree with everything that's just been said. I can't even add to it.
I've just saw a question pop up on the feed, which I just thought I wanted to answer. I'm aware of the time, and someone has posted, how do I begin to seek a mentor? And I just, I was just thinking, as I can't remember who said it previously. Kenesha Avila said, different mentors offer different things as well. So if you need a mentor for your career, that won't necessarily be a mentor for your life choices and progression and so on and so forth. So a good thing to do is actually spend some time with yourself and say, what exactly is it that I want this mentor for? And what is it that I would like this mentor to potentially do? And that will help you to seek that individual. So I think the first thing you could do is actually have a conversation with yourself to find out what is it that you want. Literally pen, paper, spider diagram, highlighters, post-it notes.
Just adding on from you, Shadia, like I know of people who have more than one mentor for different things. So it might be, they have a financial mentor, but then they also have a professional development mentor. So there's no shame in having more than one mentor. If you think that actually there are 2 areas of your life that you want some guidance in, there's no shame in having 2 separate mentors for those 2 different things. And sometimes it's quite nice to have 2 impartial people sort of support you and guide you, but also find 2 people that you think you best match with, that have the expertise that you require, that can sort of elevate that area of your life or that aspect you want mentoring to a higher place.
And I think, what else did I say? I think I saw somebody say how amazing we are. Thank you very much. There was a question, but I thought I'd highlight that. But they said something like, so now after kind of a discussion like this, how do we move this narrative forward? Where do we go now? How do we move the focus?
It's tough. I think the fact that this discussion will be publicized on everybody's social media, that helps, because although people haven't tuned in today, it will still reach the masses, and people will see it and be like, oh, what was that? Oh, I missed that. Let me tune into the next one, or let me speak to these individuals in person. But I think it's more about the idea of sort of quotes and things from this evening being publicized so that people are aware these are sort of the main points we hit. And actually, although you didn't tune in, this issue that was said or this was mentioned probably affects you. Now is the time to do something about it, because you've got people behind you and there are actually people willing to listen and to make change.
Yeah. And I was thinking in regards to like physically moving, go out there, be visible, be present, go and apply for that job that you saw that you didn't think it was for you because you don't meet one of the criteria. Still apply for it, because you never know. Somebody else could not meet 2, so therefore you're the better candidate, or so on and so forth. Put yourself forward. Just we all need to keep our eyes open for opportunities, because at the moment there's 1 of us on a board. You imagine when there's 5 of us on the board, and then when actually the board becomes so diverse, that's normal, and that we don't end up as a tick box. Can you imagine the days that our kids or our grandkids do not become a tick box, just because what we're seeing around the table is now normal? And I think that's how we move this forward, by going out there and being, seeing, doing something individually and as a collective about race at the moment.
And following on from that, I'd say it's also important to make sure that you surround yourself with people who have similar ideals and aspirations, because for a lot of people, they are comfortable, just clocking in at work at 9 and leaving at 5, and they're happy to take whatever is given to them. But if you yourself, you want to make positive change or an impact, you need to also have a community that supports you throughout the good and the bad, because majority of the time there's a lot more bad, especially when it comes to speaking out against a lot of racism, that you need to have colleagues, friends, etc., who are willing to speak up for you, because there is safety in numbers, as sad as it is to say.
I've seen another question. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, should we take some more of the questions on the...
I've seen a question about giving guidance to support BAME women colleagues and combat racism, especially at work. I think, a good start for that would be somewhere like maybe some training for all staff members on sort of microaggressions and racism and institutional racism in the workplace, and sort of the disparities between the two groups of people. And it's going to be there are going to be some uncomfortable conversations that take place, and some uncomfortable maybe realizations, and people will sort of realize, oh, actually I am that person, or that has been me. But it's about sort of making clear in those sessions that this sort of thing is not tolerable, and that we move forward. I'd say no, oh, sign up if you wish, put your name down. No, everybody's got to be there. It's almost like it's company policy. And that kind of happens yearly as part of working in a school. I know it's slightly different, but we do safeguarding training to protect the lives of children. That is mandatory every single year for all members of staff. Even if you've done it last year, you're still doing it again next year. So I think it's something like that, a yearly training that's refreshed. And from that training, there's recommended reading lists that can be sent out to members of staff to read books on, sort of different issues. I'm thinking of a book off the top of my head, White Fragility. Can't remember who it's by, but sort of books that will give scenarios and situations, but also explain why something, falls into the barrier of racism, whether you realize it or not, and how you've either played a part in allowing that to happen, or increase the intent. And a lot of people, when racist incidents at work are reported, a lot of people feel that it doesn't get dealt with appropriately, or it just gets brushed under the carpet because the person being accused has a good reputation, or because they've worked for the company for a number of years. That actually in itself counteracts the idea of combating racism, because it puts people off reporting incidents, and allows the person to get away with it again and again. So I think it's about making sure that you have that sort of forum where people feel comfortable, but also giving all staff adequate training.
And I think, unfortunately, we've got into a situation now where a lot of this training is online. The face-to-face training is disappeared, and I think that's a problem as well. And I know it's because of numbers, and it's easier to just do it online, but you cannot beat face-to-face facilitation and emotions and experiences. And I think actually race is not easy, so therefore stop trying to make the topic easy, and bring it to where it needs to be so that it can be challenged. I don't know how that would work, because institutions are so big at the moment, and we're all so fast paced and so on, and the future is online and digital. However, it's not helping this narrative, it's not helping this discussion.
Yeah, and I think if you're stuck for somewhere to start to look for maybe somebody to facilitate the training or materials for that, Twitter is an amazing place. Yeah. If you tweet out that you're looking for somebody to come and run some training on race, there are plenty of people out there that will either provide you materials, or whether it's free or not, they will happily come in, work with you in your establishment to make sure that staff get the relevant training, and that things are necessarily put in place and updated as well. So there are plenty of people out there that will be more than happy to support and recommend things.
I guess one more thing is, I see a lot of companies, from what I've seen anyway, especially when Black Lives Matter was trending, there's long-lived 2 weeks. So a lot of companies, apparently they were turning to all of their Black employees to try lead the discussion on it. So it's important that you make sure you get qualified people to do it, because not everyone wants that burden, because it is such a heavy topic, and you need to have, it is something which an expert has to talk about. You can't just get lived experience, because there are so many nuances to it, and you have to be able to train people, etc. So don't leave the burden on your employees. That's not their job. They already have to do work for you in a way.
Thank you everyone for all your kind of just thank you everyone who submitted questions, and thank you for everyone who's answered them, and I really hope this that this conversation kind of goes beyond this evening. So as we said at the beginning, that the webinar is being recorded, so it will be shared on social media platforms. I do encourage you all to kind of connect with the panelists in their work, in what they're doing, in resharing their work. I think that has a huge, there's power in that, in kind of promoting the work that Black women are doing today. And if you want to either kind of stay connected, then please do. If you need any kind of, if you want any kind of more contact from the organising team for this, then you can reach us on racetolead@gmail.com, or kind of follow Race to Lead and then find one of us through there. And I'd just like to firstly, kind of being able to talk authentically about your experiences. I think that's really valuable, and I really hope that everyone who's been tuning in has found it really valuable. I wanted to leave everyone with a take-home message, say just that that I've found kind of good and kind of really helpful, kind of reflect upon, saying our journey isn't just our journey, it's what we leave behind for the next generation. And I think that's the message that's kind of really kind of been repeated throughout this evening, that we are, all of us are in a leadership role. I think sometimes because we don't have the title of manager, we don't have the title of head of department, director, chief executive, that we sometimes forget that actually you don't need to have those to be a leader. We're all leaders in our own right. So I really hope that we can all play a part in kind of paving the way for people coming after us, and then also gaining support from people who have already done the journey, and kind of getting the support ourselves. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, do stay connected and do continue the conversation. As the panelists have said, the conversation of Black Lives Matter and race equality is not just a 2-week trend or a viral hashtag, or suddenly everyone's resharing resources on their Instagram stories, on Twitter, on Facebook. Like, it has to be really looking at changing the system, not just going beyond just raising awareness. I think awareness kind of does fizzle out after a certain point. So I really hope that tonight has helped kind of cement those kind of conversations, you're able to take it forward to make a change. So thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you for having us. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.